The desert sun beat down mercilessly on the lone trading post at Devil's Canyon, Arizona Territory, where rancher Marcus Cole had stopped to water his horse and resupply for the long journey back to his ranch. At 52, Marcus had spent most of his adult life alone, preferring the company of cattle and horses to the complexities of human relationships. But what he discovered behind the abandoned trading post would shatter his solitary existence forever. She couldn't have been more than 16. This Apache girl tied to a weathered wooden post with rawhide bonds that had already cut into her wrists. Her long black hair hung in tangled curtains around her face, and her traditional dress was torn and stained with dust and dried blood. But it was the crude wooden sign hung around her neck that made Marcus's blood run cold. Shamed her tribe was burned into the wood in rough English letters, and below it, Apache symbols that Marcus couldn't read, but somehow understood conveyed the same message of disgrace and banishment. The girl looked up as Marcus approached, her dark eyes holding a mixture of defiance and despair that reminded him of a wild Mustang that had been broken but not conquered. She said something in Apache, her voice hoarse from thirst and exhaustion. "Easy there, miss," Marcus said gently, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I don't speak Apache, but I can see you're in trouble." The girl studied his weathered face for a long moment before responding in heavily accented English. "You should not be here, white man. I am cursed. My own people have cast me out for bringing shame upon our tribe." Marcus knelt down to examine the bonds that held her, noting how tightly they were tied and how raw her wrists had become from struggling. "What's your name?" "I am called Aiyana no more," she replied bitterly. "That name died with my honor. Now I am nothing, no one." "Well, I'm Marcus Cole," he said, pulling out his knife and beginning to cut through the rawhide ropes. "And I don't believe anyone is nothing. What happened to you?" As the bonds fell away, the girl rubbed her wounded wrists and looked at Marcus with suspicion. "Why do you free me? Do you not see the sign? I have brought shame to my people." "I see a young woman who's been left to die in the desert," Marcus replied firmly. "Whatever you did or didn't do, this isn't justice. This is cruelty." The girl's composure cracked slightly, revealing the frightened teenager beneath the stoic facade. "My tribe believes I betrayed them to the cavalry. They think I led soldiers to our hidden camp, caused the death of warriors, brought dishonor to our family name." Marcus offered her his water canteen, watching as she drank deeply with the desperation of someone who had been dying of thirst. "Did you?" She looked up at him with eyes that held more pain than anger. "No, but the truth does not matter when fear and grief seek someone to blame. I was in the wrong place when the soldiers came. I was seen speaking to a cavalry scout days before the attack. The evidence pointed to me, and my people needed someone to hold responsible for their losses. So they cast you out to die. It is our way," she said simply. "When someone brings shame to the tribe, they must be removed like a diseased limb, or the whole body will suffer." Marcus felt his heart clench with familiar pain. He knew what it was like to be judged unfairly, to be blamed for things beyond his control. His own past held accusations and ostracism that had driven him to this isolated life on the frontier. "What will you do now?" Marcus asked. The girl looked out at the vast desert, stretching in all directions, her expression resigned to a fate she seemed to accept. "I will walk into the desert and join my ancestors. There is nowhere for one like me to go. I cannot return to my people, and the white world will not accept an Apache woman, especially one marked as a traitor." "That's where you're wrong," Marcus said, making a decision that surprised even himself. "You can come with me." She stared at him in amazement. "You would take me to your home?" "A disgraced Apache woman who may have betrayed her own people." "I would take a human being who needs help," Marcus corrected. "And for what it's worth, I don't think you betrayed anyone. I've seen real betrayal, and it doesn't look like the pain I see in your eyes." For the first time since he'd found her, the girl showed a flicker of hope. "You do not know me. You do not know what I may have done." "I know enough," Marcus replied. "I know you're brave enough to face death with dignity. I know you're honest enough to tell me the truth even when it makes you look guilty. And I know you deserve a chance to prove who you really are." The girl was quiet for a long time, wrestling with emotions and possibilities she had thought were lost forever. My name, she said finally, was Aiyana. It means eternal blossom in my language. My people stripped it from me when they cast me out, said I was no longer worthy of a name that spoke of beauty and continuity. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest at such cruel treatment. Well, Aiyana, I think you're worthy of any name you choose to carry, and if you'll have me, I'd be honored to give you a place where you can decide who you wanted to be. As they prepared to leave the trading post, Aiyana looked back at the wooden sign that had marked her disgrace. Marcus followed her gaze and, without a word, picked up the sign and threw it into a nearby fire pit, watching as the flames consumed the words that had labeled her a shame to her people. Why? Aiyana asked, watching the sign burn. Because shame isn't something you wear around your neck, Marcus replied. It's something you carry in your heart, and I don't think your heart has anything to be ashamed of. The ride to Marcus's ranch took 2 days across the harsh Arizona desert, and during that time, Aiyana began to tell him more of her story. She had been raised in a traditional Apache family, taught the old ways of tracking, healing, and survival. But she had also been curious about the changing world around her, learning English from traders and trying to understand the white culture that was rapidly encroaching on Apache lands. I thought if I could understand both worlds, Aiyana explained. As they made camp the first night, I could help my people navigate the changes that were coming. But curiosity was seen as betrayal, and my questions were interpreted as disloyalty. Marcus stared into the campfire, remembering his own struggles with a world that demanded conformity and punished those who dared to think differently. Sometimes, the very qualities that make someone valuable are the ones that get them in trouble. You speak as if you know this pain, Aiyana observed quietly. Marcus was silent for a long moment before responding. I was a cavalry officer once, 15 years ago. I tried to prevent a massacre of peaceful Apache families, spoke out against orders I knew were wrong. For my trouble, I was court-martialed for disobeying orders and drummed out of the service. In disgrace, Aiyana's eyes widened with understanding. You lost your honor trying to protect my people? I lost my career, Marcus corrected, but I kept my honor. Sometimes doing what's right costs you everything, but it's still worth doing. Is that why you live alone? Why you have no family? Marcus nodded sadly. Hard to build relationships when you're branded as a traitor and a disgrace. Most folks don't want to associate with someone who's been cast out, regardless of the reasons. Aiyana studied his weathered face in the firelight, seeing the loneliness and pain he tried to hide behind his gruff exterior. We are both outcasts then, both judged for trying to do what we thought was right. Maybe, Marcus agreed, but maybe that means we understand each other in ways other people couldn't. On the second day of their journey, they were approached by a patrol of cavalry soldiers led by a young lieutenant who eyed Aiyana with suspicion and distrust. Mr. Cole, the lieutenant said formally, I'm Lieutenant Morrison. We're looking for a renegade Apache woman who's wanted for questioning in connection with the attack on the settlement at Willow Creek. Marcus felt Aiyana tense beside him, but his own expression remained calm. What's this woman supposed to have done, Lieutenant? Intelligence reports suggest she provided information to hostile Apache bands about cavalry patrol routes and civilian settlements. Several people have died because of her betrayal. Marcus looked at Aiyana, seeing the pain and resignation in her eyes as she faced yet another false accusation. But he also saw something else, the quiet dignity of someone who had accepted that the world would judge her harshly regardless of her innocence. Lieutenant, Marcus said quietly, this young woman has been with me for the past month, helping with ranch work. She couldn't have been involved in any recent attacks. It was a lie. But Marcus told it without hesitation, instinctively protecting someone he was beginning to care about deeply. Lieutenant Morrison studied both of them carefully. You're willing to vouch for her, Mr. Cole? With my life, Marcus replied without hesitation. The patrol moved on, but Marcus knew this wouldn't be the last time Aiyana would face suspicion and accusations. As they continued toward his ranch, he made a silent promise to himself. He would give this brave young woman the chance to prove her worth, regardless of what the world thought of either of them. Subscribe to our channel to see what happens next. Will Marcus be able to protect Aiyana from those who want to see her punished for crimes she didn't commit? How will a disgraced Apache woman and a lonely ex-cavalry officer build a new life together? Don't miss the next chapter of this powerful story of redemption and second chances. Marcus Cole's ranch sat in a hidden valley 30 miles from the nearest settlement, a modest but well-maintained operation that reflected the care of a man who had poured his heart into the land when human relationships became too painful to bear for Aiyana, who had expected to die alone in the desert. The ranch represented something she had never dared hope for, a chance at a new beginning. "This is beautiful," Aiyana said softly as they crested the ridge that revealed the valley below, with its comfortable log house, sturdy corrals, and cattle grazing peacefully along a clear running stream. "It's peaceful," Marcus replied, though his voice carried an undertone of loneliness that hadn't been there before Aiyana's arrival. Sometimes too peaceful for a man's own good. Over the following weeks, Aiyana threw herself into ranch work with the same intensity she had once devoted to learning the traditional ways of her people. She proved to be remarkably skilled with horses, able to gentle even the most skittish animals with a patience and intuition that amazed Marcus. "You have a gift," Marcus told her one afternoon as he watched her work with a wild Mustang that had been giving the ranch hands trouble for months. "I've never seen anything like it." Aiyana smiled, the first genuine smile Marcus had seen from her since the day he found her tied to that post. "My grandmother taught me that animals and people are not so different. Both respond to kindness and patience, and both can sense when someone truly cares about their well-being." "Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman." Aiyana's expression grew sad. "She was. She died defending our village when I was 12. She would be ashamed to know what became of me. How I was cast out by our own people." Marcus stopped his work and looked at her seriously. "Aiyana, from what I've seen of your character, your grandmother would be proud of the woman you've become. You survived terrible injustice with your dignity intact, and you've chosen to build something good with your life instead of letting bitterness consume you." "How can you be so certain of my innocence?" Aiyana asked. "You know only what I have told you." Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. "Because I've seen real betrayal, real corruption. It leaves a mark on a person's soul that you can't hide. You don't have that mark. Aiyana, you have the pain of someone who's been wrongly accused, but not the guilt of someone who's actually done wrong." Their peaceful routine was disrupted one morning when a group of Apache warriors appeared on the ridge overlooking the ranch. Marcus counted 6 men, all armed and painted for war, their faces grim with purpose. "Aiyana," Marcus called quietly, "we've got company." Aiyana looked up from the garden she'd been tending and immediately recognized the lead warrior. "Nate," she whispered, her face going pale. "My brother." Marcus felt his hand move instinctively toward his rifle, but Aiyana placed a gentle hand on his arm. "No weapons," she said firmly. "If they meant to attack, they would have done so already. They have come to talk." The warriors rode down into the valley slowly, their eyes never leaving Marcus and Aiyana as they approached the ranch house. Nate dismounted first, his young face hard with anger and disappointment as he looked at his sister. "Aiyana," Nate said in Apache, then switched to English for Marcus's benefit. "You shame our family further by living among the white eyes who destroyed our people." "I live where I am welcomed and treated with kindness," Aiyana replied calmly, though Marcus could see the pain in her eyes at facing her brother's condemnation. Nate's gaze shifted to Marcus, studying him with the intensity of a warrior evaluating a potential enemy. "You are the one who harbors my dishonored sister. I'm the one who gave shelter to a young woman who was left to die in the desert," Marcus replied evenly. "If that makes me guilty of something, then I'm proud to be guilty." "She brought death to our people," one of the other warriors said harshly. "She led the Bluecoats to our hidden camp. Warriors died because of her betrayal. I did no such thing." Aiyana protested, her voice breaking with emotion. "I have told you the truth, but you refuse to hear it because you need someone to blame for our losses." Nate's expression softened slightly as he looked at his sister, and Marcus could see the love and uncertainty warring in the young man's heart. "If you are innocent as you claim, then return with us, face the council of elders, prove your words with deeds. And if I cannot prove my innocence to their satisfaction, Aiyana asked, quietly, what then? The silence that followed was answer enough. Aiyana would be executed if she returned and failed to convince the tribal council of her innocence. She's not going anywhere, Marcus said firmly, stepping protectively closer to Aiyana. This woman has done nothing wrong, and I won't let her be condemned by people who are too blinded by grief and anger to see the truth. Nature's hand moved to his knife handle. You would fight Apache warriors to protect one you have known for mere weeks. I would fight anyone to protect someone who deserves protection. Marcus replied without hesitation, and I've seen enough of your sister's character to know she deserves better than the treatment your people have given her. The standoff continued for several tense moments before Aiyana stepped forward, placing herself between Marcus and her brother. Nate, look at me. Really look at me. Do you see guilt in my eyes? Or do you see the pain of someone who has been wrongly accused by the people she loves most? Nate stared into his sister's eyes for a long moment, and Marcus could see the doubt beginning to creep into his expression. This was a young man who loved his sister, but had been pressured by his tribe to believe the worst about her. The evidence, Nate began weakly, was circumstantial. Aiyana interrupted. I was seen talking to a cavalry scout, yes, but I was trying to negotiate safe passage for our women and children, not betraying our warriors' positions. I was near the hidden camp when the attack came, because I was returning from gathering medicine for our wounded, not because I was leading soldiers there. Marcus watched as the truth of Aiyana's words seemed to penetrate the wall of anger and preconceptions that Nate had built around his heart. The young warrior's shoulders sagged as he began to confront the possibility that his tribe had wrongly condemned an innocent woman. If this is true, Nate said slowly, then we have committed a great injustice. The greatest injustice, Aiyana replied sadly, is not that you cast me out, but that you have chosen to believe the worst about someone who has loved you and our people her entire life. One of the other warriors, an older man with scars marking him as a veteran of many battles, stepped forward. I am Cochise, war chief of the band. I have watched this woman since she was a child, seen her devotion to our people. Perhaps, we acted too hastily in our judgment. Marcus felt a surge of hope as he saw the Apache warriors beginning to question their previous assumptions about Aiyana's guilt. But he also saw the pain in Aiyana's eyes as she faced the people who had abandoned her in her hour of greatest need. It does not matter now, Aiyana said quietly. I am no longer Apache. You made that clear when you stripped me of my name and left me to die. I have found a new life, a new family, with someone who judged me by my actions rather than by fear and suspicion. Nate looked stricken by his sister's words. Aiyana, if we were wronged, if... Aiyana's voice carried years of pain and disappointment. Brother, you should have known I could never betray our people. You should have fought for me instead of joining those who condemned me. Marcus placed a supportive hand on Aiyana's shoulder, feeling the tension in her body as she confronted the brother who had failed to defend her. Aiyana has built a good life here, he said firmly. She's found peace and purpose, and she's helping me build something worthwhile. If you truly care about her welfare, you'll respect her choice to stay. Cochise studied Marcus carefully, evaluating not just his words, but his character. You speak of building something worthwhile. What do you build? A place where people are judged by their actions rather than their heritage, Marcus replied. A place where Apache wisdom and white knowledge can work together instead of destroying each other. Your sister has taught me as much as I've taught her. And what has she taught you? Nate asked, genuinely curious. Marcus smiled, thinking of all the ways Aiyana had enriched his life over the past weeks. She's taught me that healing is possible even after the worst betrayals. She's shown me that strength comes not from hiding from pain, but from facing it with dignity. And she's proven that the best families are sometimes the ones we choose, not the ones we're born into. Subscribe to our channel to see the powerful conclusion. Will Nate and the Apache warriors accept Aiyana's choice to stay with Marcus? Can two outcasts truly build a new life together? Or will the prejudices of both their worlds tear them apart? Don't miss the final chapter where love conquers judgment and healing triumphs over hate. The Apache warriors spent the night camped near Marcus's ranch, And the morning brought a conversation that would change everything for both Aiyana and her brother Nate as the sun rose over the Arizona desert, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and gold. The truth finally emerged about the cavalry attack that had torn their family apart. "Sister," Nate said quietly as he approached Aiyana by the stream where she was washing clothes, "I have something to tell you that I should have said months ago." Aiyana looked up from her work, seeing a pain in her brother's eyes that matched her own. "What is it, Nate? The cavalry scout you were seen talking to," Nate began, his voice heavy with shame. "He approached me as well, offered me money and supplies if I would provide information about our defenses." Aiyana's hands stilled on the shirt she was washing. "What did you tell him?" "I told him nothing," Nate said quickly, "but I also said nothing when the council accused you of betrayal. I let them believe you had done what he had asked me to do." The weight of this revelation hit both siblings like a physical blow. Aiyana's exile, her suffering, her near death in the desert, all of it had been based on her brother's silence about his own encounter with the cavalry scout. "Why?" Aiyana whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Why did you let them blame me?" Nate's composure cracked completely as he knelt beside his sister, his own tears falling freely. "Because I was afraid they would blame me instead, afraid they would question my loyalty as they questioned yours. I was a coward, Aiyana, and my cowardice cost you everything." Marcus, who had been watching from a distance, approached quietly as the truth finally came to light. He could see the pain and relief warring in Aiyana's expression as she processed her brother's confession. "The real betrayer," Aiyana said slowly, "was the scout himself. He played our people against each other, using our own fears and suspicions to weaken us from within." Coach Eyes, the war chief, had overheard the conversation and stepped forward. With grave dignity, "This changes everything. Aiyana, you have suffered a great injustice at the hands of your own people. We have wronged you beyond measure." "Yes, you have," Aiyana replied, her voice steady despite her tears. "But the question now is what we do about it." Nate looked up at his sister with desperate hope. "Come home with us. Let us restore your honor, give you back your name and your place among our people. Let us try to make amends for what we have done." Aiyana was quiet for a long moment, looking out over the ranch that had become her sanctuary, then back at the brother who had failed her when she needed him most. "And if I choose to stay here instead, then you would be choosing a white man over your own blood," one of the younger warriors said harshly. "No," Aiyana replied firmly. "I would be choosing the family that stood by me over the one that abandoned me. I would be choosing the people who believed in my innocence over those who assumed my guilt." Marcus felt his heart swell with pride at Aiyana's words, but he also recognized the terrible choice she was being forced to make. "Aiyana," he said gently, "you don't have to choose at all. Your people are welcome here anytime. This could be a place where both worlds meet in peace." Coach Eyes studied Marcus with new interest. "You would welcome Apache visitors to your land?" "I would welcome anyone who comes in peace and friendship," Marcus replied honestly. "Your sister has taught me that there's wisdom in Apache ways, just as there's value in some aspects of white culture. Maybe it's time both sides learned from each other instead of just fighting." Aiyana looked at Marcus with love and gratitude shining in her dark eyes. "You would do this? Create a place where my people and yours could meet safely. We would do this," Marcus corrected gently. "Together, if that's what you want." Nate watched the interaction between his sister and the white rancher, seeing something he hadn't expected: genuine love and respect that transcended racial boundaries. "You care for her," he said to Marcus, his voice carrying a note of surprise. "More than I've ever cared for anyone." Marcus admitted honestly, "Your sister saved my life just as surely as I saved hers. She brought light into a darkness I didn't even realize I was living in." "And what of children?" Coach Eyes asked pragmatically. "What place would there be in this world for children born of Apache mother and white father?" "They would have a place of honor," Aiyana said firmly before Marcus could respond. "They would learn both languages, both cultures, both ways of seeing the world. They would be bridges between peoples instead of outcasts from both." Marcus nodded in agreement. "Any child of ours would be raised to be proud of both heritages, to see the strength in diversity rather than the division in difference." The conversation continued throughout the day. As the Apache warriors came to understand the depth of the bond that had formed between Aiyana and Marcus, they saw how she had bloomed in an environment of respect and kindness, how she had used her knowledge of both cultures to help Marcus improve his ranching methods and his relationships with local tribes. More importantly, they began to see the possibility of a different future, one where Apache and white could coexist and even cooperate instead of being locked in endless conflict. That evening, as they gathered around the campfire, Cochise made a proposal that surprised everyone. "Aiyana, if you choose to stay here with this man, our band will consider this ranch to be neutral ground, a place where Apache and white can meet for trade, for healing, for learning from each other. You would do this?" Aiyana asked, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. "We have wronged you greatly," Cochise replied. "This is one way we can begin to make amends. And perhaps," he added with a slight smile, "we can learn something from this white man who saw the value in what we threw away." Nate stepped forward, his young face serious but hopeful. "Sister, I cannot undo the wrong I did you, but I swear, on our father's grave, that I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of your forgiveness." Aiyana stood up and embraced her brother, feeling the healing of wounds that had seemed deep to ever close. "Forgiveness is not something you earn, Nate. It is something I give freely, because you are my brother and I love you." 6 months later, the Aiyana ranch had become exactly what Marcus and Aiyana had envisioned, a meeting place between cultures, a sanctuary for understanding and cooperation. Apache families would come to trade horses and crafts for manufactured goods and medical supplies. White settlers would stop by to learn tracking and survival skills from Apache visitors. Most importantly, it had become a home for Marcus and Aiyana, who had married in a ceremony that honored both Apache and American traditions. Their love story had become legend throughout the territory, proof that understanding and respect could triumph over prejudice and fear. "Do you ever regret your choice?" Marcus asked one evening as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, Aiyana's hand resting on the gentle swell of her pregnant belly. "Never." Aiyana replied without hesitation, "I was cast out by my people for bringing them shame, but that casting out led me to you, to this life, to this love. Sometimes what seems like the worst thing that can happen to us turns out to be the beginning of the best thing." Marcus smiled, thinking of his own journey, from disgraced cavalry officer to happy husband and soon-to-be father. "I used to think I was meant to live alone, that my past had ruined me for any kind of happiness. But you showed me that redemption is always possible, that love can heal even the deepest wounds." Their first child, a daughter they named Hope, was born the following spring, and she grew up speaking both English and Apache, learning the stories and traditions of both cultures. She would eventually become a teacher and translator, helping other families bridge the gap between worlds that had once seemed impossibly far apart. But that night, as Marcus and Aiyana held each other under the star-filled Arizona sky, they weren't thinking about the future impact of their choices. They were simply grateful for the miraculous chain of events that had brought them together. His disgrace that led him to the frontier, her false accusation that led her to that trading post, and their mutual courage to look beyond surface differences to find the love that lay beneath. The sign that had once marked Aiyana as a shame to her tribe had been burned to ash, but its destruction had given birth to something far more beautiful, a love that proved that true family isn't about blood or race or culture, but about the choice to stand by each other no matter what the world might say. In years to come, travelers would tell stories about the Apache woman and the white rancher who had defied convention to build something extraordinary. But for Marcus and Aiyana, the real miracle wasn't that they had changed the world around them. The real miracle was that they had found each other, two outcasts who had discovered that being cast out together was better than being accepted apart. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories from the American frontier. This incredible tale of Aiyana and Marcus proves that love truly knows no boundaries, and that sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the greatest blessings. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to join us for more emotional journeys. that show how two broken hearts can heal each other and create something beautiful. From the ashes of shame and rejection, share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that true family is found not in blood, but in the choice to love unconditionally.